As a true Dominican, I really think we could make it. But as a people, we have to learn to commit. Journey ahead will never be smooth and sweet. But as an ambitious nation, we have to be upbeat. I know we have done it before, so we can do it again. All the pain we've endured, but pride we have to maintain in order to create a better world. Every living soul has to play their role. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We got to stamp out the devil, stamp out evil, jealousy, not by me, certainly. We got to stamp out greediness, stamp out wickedness, jealousy, not by me, certainly. Tomorrow is the first day. The rest of our lives, let's make tomorrow the first day of the rest of our life. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make our country strong. Change, change. I remember the love and unity that we once shared. Starting from the home, the children would be prepared. Goodness was a daily part of our living. This society would be part of our children upbringing. We used to eat everything we grow and grow everything we eat. But smiling faces would glow and our people were real discreet. We need to go back to where we were. Otherwise we'll witness things we never seen before. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong.
All right, folks. Yes, indeed, an opportunity to make our country strong. Yes, Dominicans, those of you who are already here, thank you very much for tuning in at this time. It is already 5 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. The voice is still a bit groggy, but it is getting there nonetheless. I want to say first up, but thank you for all of you who wished me well. From Friday, I was really, really down and out with the flu. I can tell you that. And so I will not wish that flu on any one of you out there. All right. But I'm getting there. And thanks for all of you who wished me well indeed. It's already 5 minutes, as I said, past 6 o'clock, 6th of October. That is the date, 2024. And that is where we're about to make a prompt start to our program here this evening, the Civic Vibes program. That program is aired on Facebook, streamed also on YouTube, and also on Twitter. The numbers to call into the program sometimes later, they are 245-2396. Again, I want to repeat, 245-2396 or 615-9470. All of you already logged into the program. Those of you in Dominica, those of you in the region, we're going to talk some regional matters this evening, especially as it pertains to some of the numerous resignations from the UPP party in Antigua. We're going to have a discussion with my brother here. No stranger to Civic Vibes. As a matter of fact, we can call him one of our own, Brother Magic Ian Hughes from Antigua and Barbuda. We're going to talk to him in the first segment. And also in the second segment coming up, we remember our former Prime Minister, our brother, our friend, an international man, just name it, the brother Rosie Douglas, indeed. So yes, folks, just join in and tune in, share that live information, make someone know that that program is on, and you as well as they can partake and participate from what is prepared here for you guys this evening. Without saying much more, let me just give thanks to our person who always get us going here. That Sister Joy Stout, Opportunity for Change, she entitled that song. And so Joy Stout, wherever you are this time, thank you very, very much indeed. So we want to give credit to you at this time for always using your material at the start of our program. It sort of gives us that jumpstart that we need to move that program in a particular direction as it pertains to the betterment for our country, indeed. Without saying much more, let me move across to Alvin Thomas for his opening remarks. Alvin, good evening to you, my brother. How is it?
Yes, Brother Lofty, good evening, good evening. Good to hear you and to see you. Knowing what, you know, your health situation the last couple of days, but you look bright, bright and dandy, as they say. I was wondering whether you took the formula that the minister recommended in the parliament, BB and pink grapefruit. That's what I heard. I say you must have taken some of that. You must have.
I took
Tell me you did, Lofty.
I took all of the above, Alvin. All of the above.
Because you cannot take the directive of the minister, especially when it's announced in parliament.
I
But
know.
But let me just say a pleasant good afternoon, good evening rather, to all our folks who have already logged in with us for yet another interesting program, I will say. Yes, we have our brother here, Magic, with us from Wadadli, Antigua and Barbuda, and I know this guy is always very stimulating and engaging in the conversation. So I am looking forward to that in terms of what's happening down there in Antigua. It's usually said in the Creole Palace, La Bab Kamawado Puidi Feuzesa, when the fire catches on the other side, wet yours, because you know the flames could come across.
There's another part to that, you know, Alvin.
Tell me.
Let Bab Kamada Puidi pour glow.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right
Right.
You're right on that. Pour glow.
That is key.
That is key. That part is key. You're right on that. I left that part out. But yeah, we're happy to have our brother Magic, and of course the second segment, as you say, will be Dr. Irvin Andrea. I'm sure, going to be another very interesting segment of the program. So yes, a pleasant good afternoon to all those who have already logged in. And let me just say good afternoon to all our folks. Wish you all a very good Sunday. Sit back, relax, listen, and let's get engaged in the conversation. I just want to shout out in a little way our lady, Paula Celestine. You remember Paula back then? Paula used to be on that program with us. Good afternoon, Paula, wherever you are. I hope you're having a great afternoon. I just want to say good afternoon to you and all the many folks out there who are having a pleasant Sunday. So, as they say, let's get ready to rumble.
Yes, Alvin, just by way of information, Paula is out of Dominica somewhere, you know, enjoying herself. So, I know she's tuned in.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yes,
that's
Paula
good
is out there somewhere.
That's good. She deserved it. She deserved it.
Indeed. All right, folks, 10 minutes past 6 o'clock, and that is where we want to turn now to the conversations that we're about to have here. First segment, as I said before, we're going to look at a situation that has engulfed a party in opposition in Antigua for some time. I must add, though, a very formidable party at that. Magic will bear me out there, but I think they got 8 seats in the last general elections. And from since then, you know, in terms of they moving up the ladder, we have been hearing that sort of downward spiral, a number of resignations from that United Progressive Party in Antigua and Barbuda. So Brother Magic here is going to, you know, tell us from his perspective, that is, just why he thinks that a number of people, a number of candidates, a number of caretakers, a number of senators have been moving away from the UPP party of late. The second segment, we're going to remember our brother, Rosie Douglas, died on the 1st of October, 2020. Yes? No, 2000, sorry. 1st of October, 2000. So 24 years ago, this brother fell. We have not been hearing much of Rosie since his death, but it is our mantra here to keep his memory alive and well in the Dominican psyche, as it were. So everyone can know the good works that Rosie did and had in store for our country, Dominica. So we're going to hear from a man who wrote about Rosie Douglas in a book, Dr. Irvin Andre, and also a very good buddy of his from Guadeloupe, that is Mr. Julian Marion. I hope I have his name properly. He's going to tell us much more of Rosie in terms of their closeness. So stay tuned, people. The conversations that are coming our way will be very, very interesting. You can partake, you can share when we open up those lines here. Mr. Ian Hughes, good evening to you, my brother, and how are you?
A pleasant evening to you, Loftus and Alvin, and to your many listeners, viewers on Facebook. Thank you so very much for inviting me to have this conversation. I'm always truly honored to have a conversation with my people. I tell you all once I come on here with you is that my mom hails from Dominica, so I feel very much a part of the island of Dominica. So me and Dominican too, so I don't have to worry about anything. So
Sure.
and I pay homage to my ancestors. Without them, we would not be here. They fought their way to preserve life as we know it, or living as we know it, so that we could be here going through all that turmoil, slavery, colonization, you name it, and we are still here. So thank you so very much, and I really appreciate you calling, and we can have this conversation to the people of Dominica and those listening from wherever around the world.
Yes, indeed. And so, Magic, let me just put it on the record here. Whenever I call on you to, be a contributor to the program, whatever the topic is, you always make time. And so we here at Civic Vibes really want to thank you indeed for taking time off for us in Dominica and be willing to contribute on the Civic Vibes program. We appreciate that very much, brother.
And let me say something about this. I think the people of the region need to engage more. I think a lot of times we are not too afraid of what's happening in the other islands. And I think shows like this are very important, where your audience can listen to what's happening in another place. And hopefully we can spread, who knows, one day we may have 5-6 persons from 5-6 different islands having a conversation on any topic. So, I really appreciate what you do, my brother.
Yeah, you just gave me an idea there. Something like a regional link up.
Definitely.
All right. Indeed.
Sounds good.
Alvin, yes, Alvin, you want to say something?
No, sounds good. And I agree entirely with what Magic has said, I mean, I know sometimes you hear folks saying, man, you guys keep talking and talking, but I'm one who believes that you can walk and chew gum. You talk and take action, but you first have to talk and inform, have the information, arm yourself with the information, be knowledgeable of what's taking place in order to take the action. So while I understand the process can be slow and frustrating, and sometimes we feel like giving up, but anything that is worth, anything that is needs to be successful or good is worth fighting for. So it don't come easy, as they say in song. So yeah, I concur very much with what Magic have said.
True. All right, Magic, let us move the conversation in your direction now. We are going to have that conversation about the United Progressive Party in your neck of the wood, that is in Antigua and Barbuda. Can you just go back in terms of giving us a historical angle or perspective as to the UPP? When was it formed? The ideologies, the philosophies behind that party, and words to that effect.
Well, okay. So here is the thing: the United Progressive Party was born out of that PLM party, which governed Antigua and Barbuda between 1971 and 1976. And if you ask anyone, and they're going to be honest with you, they would tell you that for the 5 years of the Progressive Labor Movement, PLM, their 5 years might have been the most productive 5 years in the history of any party in Antigua and Barbuda. They built a number of schools, the infrastructure in terms of the road network in Antigua and Barbuda was very much improved. The agricultural sector was booming during those 5 years until they came to an end on what was called the Blue Chicken Scandal, which the Antigua Labour Party, who had governed Antigua and Barbuda since 1981, who had governed Antigua and Barbuda prior. And then when the PLM tried to get independence in the 1979-80, the Antigua Labour Party, they were extremely rallied the people that we weren't ready. They were vehement that no, we are not ready for independence. But having won in 1976, they moved swiftly to bring in independence in 1981. And they've basically governed Antigua and Barbuda from 81 to 2004, when the United Progressive Party, after being born out of the PLM party, took office in 2004. They governed for 10 years. The first 5 years, there were a number of issues. The UPP, they had, what, I think 14 seats in 2004. By 2009, they were down to like 10 or 11 seats, somewhere about. And the Antigua Labour Party had made real inroads. And by 2014, they lost to the Antigua Labour Party, now led by Gaston Brown. And, you know, the Labour Party has been in office for like 38 of the last, 48 years, outside of 15 years in Antigua's history. There's been a Labour Party basically in office in Antigua and Barbuda, and they have been in office for the past 10 years, 2014 until now. In 2014, the Antigua Labour Party defeated the United Progressive Party.
Magic, you mentioned, just before you go a little further, you mentioned about the blue chicken scandal. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Okay, what happened was there was this import company in trade, and the owner of that company was a hardened Labour Party supporter. The PLM had revamped or brought into being the agricultural sector, including the farming of chickens, right? And what happened? The scandal arose from what they said the government, the PLM at the time, was feeding the people bad chicken. Only to find out that what they actually did was this importer, he imported chicken, left the chicken out in the sun, it spoiled, and they still put them on the shelf. Hence the blue chicken scandal. And that basically wiped out the PLM from office.
Okay.
Even though they were the development of Antigua and Barbuda had progressed tremendously under the PLM government, but the propaganda.
And what year did
1971 to 1976.
Okay.
5
cool.
years, yes.
All right, cool. Thanks.
So, yeah, fast forward, well, my neighbor is playing around with his motorbike, but fast forward, 2014, the UPP lost to Gaston Brown and the Labour Party. They had 3 seats. They had 3 seats by 2018. Gaston had called an early election. He called it a year early. The UPP now had 1 seat in Jamal Pringle in office. And in 2023, in the election of last year, January 2023, the United Progressive Party was able to capture 6 seats. But the opposition is now 8 because the Barbuda has a seat, and they normally merge with the UPP. Plus, Assad Michael had left the Antigua Labour Party, basically kicked out of the party by Gaston Brown, and he ran independent. So and the Labour Party won 9 seats after having 15 of the 17 seats. And they now had 9, a slim majority of 9. The UPP had 6, and you had Trevor Walker in Barbuda and Assad Michael independent. Let me get into the light. So that's the way the seating was in Parliament. As a matter of fact, is in Parliament until Anthony Smith defected from the United Progressive Party and claimed that he's now independent. While he claimed independence, he was given a ministry by the Antigua Labour Party in Gaston Brown. So Anthony Smith, having won this All Saints West seat on the UPP ticket, claims to be independent and is in the cabinet of Gaston Brown. So that took away one seat from the United Progressive Party and the opposition. So they're now 5. The Labour Party still has 9 seats. There's Trevor Walker and Asset Michael being an independent. The thing is, the UPP has taken this matter to the court because they're of the view that the Constitution doesn't allow for members to cross the floor. Anthony Smith's decision to be an independent in the House, according to the United Progressive Party, and sit in the cabinet, breaches that constitutional law, basically saying he can't cross the floor. He's saying that I haven't crossed the floor. I'm independent, yet he's in the cabinet. So the courts are going to have to hear that one. So they're in court on that in terms of whether or not Anthony Smith can be truly independent and sit in the cabinet, and whether or not they have to declare that seat null and void or vacated and have a fresh by-election in that constituency. So that's in the courts. We wait to hear that. Interestingly,
so what was the crux? Sorry, what was the crux of his rationale? Why did he move across?
Well, okay. So first,
or moved away from UPP.
Okay, first, we heard that. Well, let's put it this way: he tendered his resignation, and after he tendered his resignation, he claimed that the leadership. He had problems with the leadership of the party. As a member of parliament, he thought that he wasn't given the respect. Before that, though, he had run for chairman of the party in April. In April, the United Progressive Party had its convention, and Richard Lewis and Jamal Pringle, they contested the leadership, leader of the party. Anthony Smith tried to get rid of Giselle Isaac as the chairperson of the party. He lost that. Richard Lewis lost as well. And coming out of the convention, there were a lot of disgruntled individuals. April was the convention, and by August, Anthony Smith tendered his resignation. When he tendered his resignation, we learned that he was offered $6 million to move. Now, while we were unable to verify that in terms of whether it's true or not, we had a number of persons who came and said, Anthony Smith, and this included the former leader of the United Progressive Party, Harold Lovell. Anthony Smith had told them that, you know what, Gaston Brown has been coming at me, asking me to change sides, and he would offer him $6 million to do so. Anthony Smith never, well, I haven't heard him deny that was ever offered. The thing is, his letter did not state, I mean, obviously that's a bribe. I mean, and I don't think he would admit to that in a resignation letter. Thing is, though, a number of persons, including his colleagues, his parliamentary colleagues, said yes, it's something they knew, but they never thought he would have taken that, because he said he would not entertain that. As a matter of fact, when he tendered his resignation on a Monday, he had been to a United Progressive Party's executive meeting the Sunday before he tendered his resignation. And by Tuesday, he was sworn into the cabinet of the anti-Labour Party.
You serious?
So, serious. So that is where we're at in terms of that situation. The thing is, why that was so devastating to the UPP and its supporters. The ALP having a very slim majority in Parliament. Robin Yearwood, who is now 80 years of age, we learned that Robin Yearwood, who is the member of Parliament and the representative in Parliament for St. Philip's North, is ill. And he is more than likely not ever coming back. As a matter of fact, the Antigua Labour Party moved to have a caretaker in that same constituency. So the UPP and its supporters were hoping with its slim lead and Robin, what happens with Robin, there may be a by-election or at least a general election, because the government, the Labour Party, could call a general election if they thought that they may lose in a by-election over in St. Philip's North. Now, that said, there were a number of speculations that Asset Michael would have rejoined the Antigua Labour Party, and there were movements to suggest that Gaston Brown was moving around to try and get an addition to his numbers to have a stronger majority in Parliament, only to find out that it was not Asset Michael, but rather Anthony Smith, and that transaction was a $6 million transaction, according to a number of persons affiliated with Anthony Smith. Now, Gaston Brown has denied any such offer, obviously, and said Anthony Smith just moved because the UPP is not ready. Now,
So just to be clear, Gaston Brown said Gaston Brown denied making that offer.
He denied, of course.
Smith have not yet acknowledged that offer. So to be politically correct, as it were, we would have to say allegedly he got $6 million to move across. Okay.
Of course. The thing is, Harold Lovell, when he was asked the question, said, look, Anthony Smith told me that Gaston Brown offered him $6 million, $3 million cash, and the others in contracts and a ministerial position. Well, we see the ministerial position. So I think one can safely say, or would want to accept, that Anthony Smith was talking the truth in terms of the reason for him leaving prior to him actually leaving. So prior to him leaving, he said he was offered X. After he left, he said he had problems with the leadership. Now, let me say this. There are a number of other persons who would have left. Damani Tabor, the PR, former Minister of Information, Edmund Mansour, he left. The caretaker for St. Paul, Cleon Attil, she left. One of the party's top mouthpieces for the UPP, Colin O'Neill, who ran that program on the UPP station, Progressive FM, he moved over and is doing his thing with the Antigua Labour Party. Driftwood, the guy, another Athill, who ran on the ticket in St. Paul, he moved. Namba Adams, who was Minister of Culture with the United Progressive Party, he also left. So there have been a number of persons who would have left the United Progressive Party. None other though than Anthony Smith and Lammy Newton as well, who ran in All Saints West on the UPP ticket as late as 2018. He also left and joined the Antigua Labour Party. While those persons who would have left the UPP was striking, there was none more striking than Anthony Smith, simply because Anthony Smith held a parliamentary position. He won his seat. Him leaving made the road a bit rockier for the United Progressive Party, because now him leaving, even if they got that seat for Robin Yearwood in St. Philip North, they still would not be able to form the government because they now lost Anthony Smith. Interestingly, though, all seem to be well and energized with the United Progressive Party prior to the convention and the quote unquote leadership race between Richard Lewis in rural West and Jamal Pringle, who is out there in All Saints East and St. Luke.
So
Jamal,
Magic, let me ask you in the interest of time here.
sure.
You mentioned all these, and just before Alvin comes in, you mentioned all these resignations, about 6, 7 of them I counted.
Yeah.
What was the underlying theme, the fine thread, as it were, that all these people were talking about why they moved away from the UPP party?
I think if you look at all the resignation letter, the common theme was they were fed up with the leadership. They were not happy with the leadership. And the leadership, while it consisted of those members in the parliament, it also had DJ Isaac, who is the chairperson, and Chaku Semester, who is one of those guys. He speaks on the legal matters. He's an attorney. He's a constitutional lawyer. And they basically formed the leadership of the United Progressive Party. However, most of the fingers pointed at the chairperson, D. Giselle Isaac. Now, you know, some people would say, if everybody, if those who leave say the reason why they leave is this person, then this person needs to go. And there were a number of persons who said, you know what, the leadership should go. Now, let me say this, and I want to be very clear. I'm not a member of the United Progressive Party. I'm a supporter of the United Progressive Party. Plus, I'm a journalist who look at, you know, I'm very open-minded. I am as honest as possible when I come. I don't lie about issues or anything about persons. When I was asked about the leader of the United Progressive Party, my thing was Jamal Pringle, in my estimation, doesn't have he's not forceful enough from where I sit to be the leader of the opposition against someone like Gaston Brown. Gaston Brown is a political beast. He don't take prisoners. You can't show sign of weakness when it comes to Gaston Brown. And I thought the United Progressive Party needed a change at the helm. The thing is, I'm like this. They had a convention. The people in the party say, you know what? We need Jamal Pringle to lead us. He won overwhelmingly. DJs at Isaac, she won overwhelmingly as well. However, coming out of that convention, the United Progressive Party just seemed to unravel. Anthony Smith left. Now, a number of persons had left before. But since then, you know, and let me just say, during a convention, I think just after 2014, when John Messiah had challenged Harold Lover for the leadership, coming out of that, the United Progressive Party seemed to be in disarray. John Messiah left the United Progressive Party and formed their own party, the DNA. They're now non-existent. So coming out of conventions with the United Progressive Party, they always appear to be in turmoil. This wasn't any different, other than the fact that a member of parliament would have left. Very, very significant. The PRO, Damani Tabor, who left as well, was very significant because he was like the mouthpiece of the United Progressive Party. He, along with most of the others, were very, like, Giselle has to go. Now, here is the thing with
in Miss Giselle Isaac's defense, I'm gonna try to reach out to her. I spoke already with her a number of occasions, and I'm gonna reach out to her as the leader of that party just to find out from her just why. You know, she thinks that a lot of people have been leaving the party, and find out from her reasons why she wants to stay. Yeah, but
the thing is, I had the Giselle Isaac on a show that I did on Observer with Joan in the Snake Pit a couple of weeks ago. And she was very straight up, open. And she's like, well, you know, and to be honest with you, I called for Giselle Isaac to leave the people thing alone and go. I subsequently came back and said, you know what, that was unfair to say that simply because this, my brother, in 2014, when the United Progressive Party lost the election, I think Giselle Isaac became chairperson of the party in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. By 2018, they were down to one seat in parliament. Giselle was the chairperson. Giselle Isaac was the chairperson when they moved from one seat to 6 seats. Now, if she's that bad, this is my question. If she's that bad, how could she lead a party from 1 seat to 6? I mean, I would think that what you're looking for is results. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be very straight up about this. A lot of men in Antigua, I can only talk for Antigua, are very scared of strong women. I'm going to repeat that. And I'm quite sure a lot of people who may be listening can attest to that. I doubt it's just Antigua. But a lot of men are intimidated by strong women who will be willing to put up an argument on a topic, be willing to question, yeah, this is what you're doing. That you know, in any organization, if you don't run a tight ship, you're going to be in problems. You're going to.
Yeah, you're going to be in problem. Thank you very much, Magic. Let's just have Alvin Thomas comes in here so that he can at least chime in on the conversation based on what we have been talking about so far. But thanks very much for your perspective. A number of people have been saying things along what you said, so I will try to point some of that at you as well as we move along. Yes, Alvin.
Yes, yes, Lofty. Thank you. And thank you, Magic, for that brilliant detailed synopsis of what's taking place on the ground with the UPP in Antigua. Did I hear you say your program is called In the Snake Pit? Is that what you call it?
I was a guest. I was a guest. There was
program.
So I was a guest, and we had Giselle on.
Okay.
And right.
Okay, cool. The name of the program was just struck me interested.
Interestingly, though, Serpent Watts, Algernon Watts, who is an MP for the United Progressive Party and co-owner of Observer, that's really his show. That's why it's called the Snake Pit.
I got you.
Right.
I got you. Okay, let me ask 2 questions of you. Is what's his name? Former Baldwin Spencer. Is he associated with the party by any chance, or is he with a different party?
No, he is, and that is a very interesting question.
And hold your thought. Let me for double on that.
Sure.
Baldwin Spencer. What I need to know what as an elder of the party, and if he's still associated with the party, what role is he playing in all of that? And also, what about the rank and file membership of the party? What do you hear on the ground? Because all we're dealing with, we're dealing with the big rocks, the big guns, as they were. But what is the rank and file position like? So if you could just chime in on those 2 areas for me, that would help.
Okay, and I said that was an interesting question because, you know, I've asked that same question, like Barwin Spencer, Wilmot Daniel, former Minister
That's right.
of
Wilmot,
Public
yes,
Works,
yes.
Hilson Baptist, former Minister of Agriculture, even Harold Lovell, who is now in Canada, teaching in university. I was like,
And
well,
then
you
even
know, why
Justin Simon,
Justin
former
Simon,
Attorney General.
former Attorney General? I mean, I'm like, where are these guys? Why aren't they calling a meeting of these persons? Because coming out of the convention, and let me say this, there has been a split in the party with Richard Lewis, who contested the leadership against Jamal Pringle. Now, Richard having lost, those who supported him at the convention were unwilling to accept the results of the convention. And some have even called for Jamal Pringle to be Biden-esque and step down, having just won, and turn it over to Richard Lewis. Now imagine you in a race, you won the race, and the loser says to you, you got to make me the winner. Even though, I mean, you know, I've been asking that question of many people. Why would I want to win something and just give it up? Why? I mean, so that has been like a talking point. Richard Lewis had not really come out like every day and say, or like couple days a week and say, look, my followers, my supporters, this is a done deal. I lost. Let's go. The interesting thing too, in 2 years, the convention is every 2 years. So those persons have another opportunity to try and get Richard Lewis as the leader if they think Richard should be the leader. Some people are saying, well, it's not just Richard, it's not just Jamal should go, is Jamal and D. Giselle Isaac. And a lot of people, well, some people were making the point that D. Giselle Isaac is too bossy. I don't know what that means. See, as personally, I don't know what that means. You 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 are in an organization. The organization has rules and regulations. For me, you follow them. I don't know. I don't understand it any other way. That's just the way I am. Now, when I looked at Jamal Pringle, I tell you this much, because I find he's too laid back. I mentioned that earlier. Plus, he is the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. This administration has not tabled the public accounts the past 8 years. Now, I know Jamal Pringle, as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, is almost like just, what they call it? Like just a name, because most of the members are the Labour Party. You need a quorum. He's claiming he's unable to get a quorum, to get a meeting, to get the accounts tabled. For me, that's a level of weakness for me personally, because I'm going to do whatever, even if I have to go to the courts, if whatever I have to do, I'm going to, because we need to know how our monies are being spent. And I thought, if you, as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, couldn't get that done, for me, I'm not supporting you. However, as I said, there was a convention and the members of his party think that he is the leader. Now, that became, when Harold Lovell lost his seat, remember, Harold Lovell lost his seat in 2014 and 2018. He ran again in 2018, he lost. And in 2023, he lost again, Harold Lovell. But he was, while Jamal Pringle was the leader of the opposition in Parliament, Harold Lovell was the leader of the party. So when Harold Lovell lost in 2023, he resigned from the party, leaving the leader of the party, quote unquote, vacant, even though Jamal Pringle by default was the leader of the opposition in Parliament. So the convention really was to concretize a position, a leader of the party's position. There were a number of persons who said, listen, that's a waste of time, don't do it. And I think if you would ask the UPP now, they may probably say that was a bad move to go with this leadership race.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
a number of, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying in the interest of time, Magic, we have like 13 more minutes to go with you. So yeah. I'm going to open up the line so people are listening now. Please feel free to call into the program. The numbers are plugged in into the live feed. At 7 o'clock, we have to, sort of make pathways with Magic and then be prepared for the other program update. Yeah. So Magic, just start to put it for us in a ballpark. One question I want to ask you though, as we speak, you can answer that when Alvin, ask you his question and he wraps up there. As we speak, how formidable a force is the UPP as we speak in Antigua? You can meditate on that, but Alvin, I'd want to punch at you after before that. Yes.
Yeah, but I know you talk about Loveville, sorry, but I still want to hear the Baldwin's role in that. Bear in mind, Baldwin was the leader of that party, was prime minister, and wow, what role is he playing in bringing the troops together?
Here's the thing. I don't know what he may be doing behind closed doors. All I know, he has not been public.
Okay.
Right? So I don't want to say he's doing nothing, because I can't even imagine that he won't do anything looking at a party that he would have led, being the prime minister in Antigua and watch it almost crumbling and do and say nothing. So, just by him having been the prime minister and the leader of that party, I can well imagine. However, he has not been public. So I cannot say definitely he's doing X, Y, or Z.
Okay. And what about the base of the party? The base.
No, okay. Here is the thing. The United Progressive Party, along with Asset Michael and Trevor Walking Barbuda, they received the majority, the popular vote. They had more votes than the Antigua Labour Party. But you know how this system works. It goes by constituencies. So the thing is, and I think I can now answer the question Loftus posed, like, how formidable is the United Progressive Party? While those persons would have left, and it appears like the UPP is in trouble, from the ground, from where I sit, the United Progressive Party is still in a very strong position. However, they must get their act together. Now, I'll tell you why I say they're still in a very strong position. Robin Yearwood, more than likely, is not going to run again. The UPP candidate, Alex Brown, in that constituency, came the closest to beating Robin Yearwood in the history. He's been in office for like 50 years, Robin Yearwood. It was like a safe seat. Don't lose. Nobody comes close to winning, but Alex Brown did in 2023. There's a strong feeling that a by-election or any election held in that constituency, Alex Brown is in a good position to take that seat. We know Malwin Joseph in St. Mary's North is aging. Jonathan Joseph came very close to beating him the last election, and all indications is that, at next election, another election, Jonathan Joseph would take that seat. Max Fernandez over in rural North, there's talk that he's leaving. And there's also talk that Mansour left the UPP to run in that seat. I'm not of the view that Mansour, if he does run, can win that seat against the UPP. So the United Progressive Party, being united, is in a strong position still. The Anthony Smith position is up in the air because it's in court. And even if Anthony Smith, he is targeted to run on the Labour Party ticket in the next election in All Saints West, I'm of the view, and the view of a number of persons, he would not win that seat on a Labour Party ticket. Now, I'm hearing a lot of talk of moving the boundaries and adding an additional seat. That is not official, but I heard that on the ground. So the Antigua Labour Party is making moves to address whatever weaknesses they have. And with the United Progressive Party seemingly not being able to come together, the Antigua Labour Party may feel that they're in a good position. Now, one may ask, why would Gaston Brown and the Labour Party be moving to get people from the UPP? Why not just strengthen his party with who he has? It is the view of a number of persons is that Gaston Brown and the Labour Party knows that once they go into an election with an intact United Progressive Party, they're going to lose. So basically, he's trying to destroy the opposition so that he really doesn't have an opposition. I don't think that is going to happen. I think by the time an election is called, that the UPP would get its act together. Right now, as we speak, most of the voters' ID are expired. They're now evaluating the cards or revalidating the cards. So the new cards, there's a process right now in place. It has been slow, so I don't see the Electoral Commission being ready for, because people are of the view, there may be a snap election. There was just an election in 2023. Some are saying there's going to be an election next year. I'm not of that view, because the electoral office, first of all, is not ready for an election. And I don't think that Gaston Brown is confident that he can beat a United Progressive Party at this present time, which have me saying the United Progressive Party is still in a strong position, even though they're not in as a strong position as they were before Anthony Smith jumped ship.
All right. Thank you very much, my brother Magic, for your perspective here. It's already 5 minutes to the hour of 7 o'clock. And so we have to take it here in just a bit. But in terms of your final comments, brother Magic, in terms of the conversation we're having, what would you want to leave with the listening and viewing public tonight? In terms of your wrap up.
I would say that it's always an honor to speak to the people of Dominica, because we have a lot of Dominicans living in Antigua and Barbuda. A number of them would vote, Labour Party, UPP, wherever, because they can vote in Antigua and Barbuda. The conversation has to continue. The United Progressive Party, the country, Antigua and Barbuda, and any other country needs to have a formidable opposition. You need a decent opposition that is going to hold the government's foot to the fire. The people also have a responsibility, because I say all the time, there is an opposition party, but the opposition is the people of the country. The people are the opposition. If you don't like what is happening, you have an opportunity to change it. And you can change it voicing your opinion and going out and vote when the time is ready. So the people of Antigua and Barbuda, listen, the oil prices are going up pretty soon. I mean, the barrel of oil has increased on the world market it's going to go up in these parts. We know this. We still don't have water. Electricity in Antigua and Barbuda, they have increased just on a whim. People were having their light bills tripled, and without any explanation. The roads right now, they're all worry boards in Antigua and Barbuda right now. It's really bad. We need to be able as a people to have a mature conversation and say, listen, this is not good for us and we need to do better. The Barbuda, they claim that there's a new airport in Barbuda opened a couple of days ago, an international airport, but they cannot take international flights. They name it the Eric Burton Nibs Airport. The family of Eric Burton said, listen, we don't want to have our father's name on no airport. We don't want to be associated with you guys. The administration went ahead and did it. We know the lands in Barbuda, the people have been called tenants. The government is in court. The government is in court with the people of Barbuda to take those lands. So, all I would say at this point in time is that a good opposition is necessary for to have a healthy, conversation and hold the feet of the government to the fire so that we can have some progress here in Antigua and Barbuda, because it has been bad for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Before I go,
yes.
Before I go, I want to say, I know you guys are remembering the good brother Rosie Douglas, and I was talking to you before the show and saying, where are the Rosie Douglases of the Caribbean? Certainly around these parts, because they seem not to have people looking out for the interest of us, the people, the owners of the lands of this region. Everybody is doing a transaction with somebody else. The Chinese are here in their thousands now. They're fishing. The Japanese are here with their trawlers taking the fish. Antigua and Barbuda made a presentation for whaling just recently, only to pull it back. A number of things are happening, and enough respect to you guys remembering the works of Rosie Douglas. I know the Canadian police did a job in terms of spying on Rosie Douglas. He was a man for the people. So I want to say respect to you guys over there in Dominica, and to keeping his legacy alive like we do here with King Court here in Antigua and Barbuda. Thank you so very much for having me on your show, and I look forward to you calling anytime that you're ready for me to make a contribution. Have a great one, you guys, and to the people of Dominica.
All right, brother Ian Hughes, better known as Magic. Thank you very much. Right on the money in terms of stoppage time. Thank you very much indeed. We did appreciate your contribution here to tonight's program. Thank you.
You're most welcome. All right.
All right, Magic. Have a good one, bro.
Thank you, my brother. Have a good one as well.
Okay.
Always good seeing you guys.
You too, man. Thanks. Great contribution.
In this world full of turmoil,
Lofty, you're not coming through. Lofty, your audio is not coming through. You're muted. You're still muted. You're still showing mute. Still mute. Still mute. Good.
twisted agenda, not me. I will never surrender. Won't bow down. To man's vain ambition.
My phone?
To no politician when they call. And getting their money, not me.
Yeah, they maybe.
I not a don't hear them. Not me.
lady saying she won't bow down.
Not me.
As Queen singing Althea out of Antigua and Barbuda.
Not me. I'm not that hungry. Not me. Not me.
All right, folks, thanks for sticking around with us. We're going to turn now to a second segment where we remember a fallen brother in the name of Rosie Douglas.
No salted prune. Once you could be useful to them.
Our contributors are already here in the name of Dr. Irvin Andre.
Stand proud
and also Dr. Julian Morion.
Do not crawl. Don't be their puppet on a string. Won't submit or kiss their ring. I won't bow down to no punch of hero.
All right, this lady saying she won't bow down indeed. Thank you very much. Let's get back to our live panel here. It is already 3 minutes past 7 o'clock. Let's turn the conversation now to Brother Rosie Douglas, remembering his life and times he shared here with us in Dominica. Let's just wait so that our producer can get us back live on screen, and then we will take our first. Yes, all right, we are right here. All right, gentlemen, good evening to you. Welcome to Civic Vibes Space. Let me start with our dear brother, the Dr. Irvin Andre. Good evening to you, my bro.
Good evening, Mr. Lofty, and good evening, my friend Alvin Thomas, and good evening, Dr. Miriam. I had occasion a few years ago when I was doing the book with Rosie to interview this Dr. Miriam. He is very much been at the forefront of the struggle for national self-independence and liberation in the French islands, and he had a very close and warm association with Rosie. So it is great that you have him on your show this evening, and obviously good evening to your producers and good evening to your listeners, Lofty.
All right, my brother, Dr. Irvin Andre, good evening to you. Always a pleasure to hearing you, but even more important to seeing you tonight and hearing from you. Thank you very much. Alvin is there for a big smile. He wants to say something as well.
No, he's looking young every minute, Lofty. So I'm trying to figure out if he too is drinking the BB and the pink grapefruit.
It is true. It is obviously true that one of the main ophthalmologists in Dominica cannot work at the Dominica Friendship, Cuban, whatever they call it, hospital, because obviously your sight has been adversely affected by her absence. But it's okay. It's no problem.
But good evening, man. Good evening.
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
And Dr. Miriam, a pleasure to see both of you. And obviously looking forward to a very interesting conversation this evening. So welcome on board.
Thank you.
Indeed. Let me just move across to Dr. Julian Merion. Is that? Let me just say a pleasant good evening to you, my brother.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be with you tonight. To speak about Rosie, my friend.
Yes, indeed. Let me just, before you go forward, Dr. Moria, tell the people out there that when I called you yesterday, asking for your participation in this program this evening, you did not hesitate. You did not say, you did not ask. You just basically fell in line. And so I really want to thank you for taking time off, for your friend and remembering how you best can.
It's not possible to hesitate when you have to speak about Rosie. I can't hesitate. It's natural for me.
It's natural. It's natural. How is Guadeloupe doing tonight? How are you guys coping in Guadeloupe? How are you doing?
I'm at Put-a-Pit now in Guadeloupe, and I'm a professor of political science at the university, and my association, Torreca, Contact and Research in the Caribbean, with an association to have links between all the countries in the Caribbean. And I have a secret for you. The first activity we had when the association has been created with Rosie in 1991. So the association was created in 1991, and one year after, I call Rosie and I say him, Rosie, everywhere in the world are celebrated Christopher Columbus. If Christopher 5 centuries, Christopher Columbus. I said, we can't accept that. We can't accept that. And I said, Rosie, you know, we want to have a meeting of all people with people where Christopher Columbus find when he arrived in the America. And we had to organize something in the Kalinago territories. And Rosie tell me, oh, it's a good idea. And we organized. I came in Dominica with 150 people. And we spent 4 days at Portsmouth, Calibichi, etc. And we have a good time. Very, very, very important for us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for such vivid memory. Indeed. Thank you very much. Remembering Rosie. Folks, again, we are talking to two esteemed gentlemen here tonight in the names of Dr. Irvin Andre and Dr. Julian Morillo. We're just remembering Rosie Douglas, former Prime Minister of Dominica, stayed in office for about 8 months, short-lived that is, but he meant well for Dominica. Everybody you talk to have that at least on their lips. I know a number of the family members, the relatives, they're listening now. Cabral, good evening to you. Sean and the rest, good evening to you guys. And so, you know, much have not been said about Rosie in Dominica for some time. 1st of October marks 24 years. Yes, 24 years since his passing. And it seems as if every year that passes, then his memory gets feeder and feeder and feeder. And so it is our pleasure here at Civic Vibes to sort of, you know, keep that memory alive and well, very, very up in terms of, you know, the number of persons who love this brother very, very much indeed. So let us just Alvin, you want to usher us into the conversation? I know Dr. Irvin Andre wrote a book about Rosie, so there's much more to come. Indeed. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, again, let me just welcome the two gentlemen here with us this evening, Dr. Irvin Andre and Dr. Julian Merrill. This month, October, is a significant month for us in Dominica, in the sense, historically, I may say. 24 years ago, Rosie died on the 1st of October. And 2 weeks from today, on the 15th of October, if Rosie was alive, he would have turned 83 years old. So October is a major month. His birthday, the 15th of October, and his death on the 1st of October, all in 1 month. And like you, Lofty, and I'm sure Irvin and Dr. Both Dr. Irvin Andre and Dr. Maria will attest to that. It seems to me that if you go to a school now, whether it's a secondary school or primary school, and you ask any one of the students, do you know a gentleman by the name of Rosie Douglas? They may look at you blank in the face. But if you ask them, do you know a gentleman by the name of Donald Trump? They'll be able to tell you who Donald Trump is. So what do you think, and that's a question I'm posing now to start the conversation, what do you think went wrong, and how can we turn this around? I guess as we engage in the conversation, I'm sure we'll have a very interesting conversation on that. So what do you think led to that, and how do we turn it around? What can we do? Dr. Andre, you might want to take the first bite at the apple.
Well, speaking of the apple or the mango, which is what I prefer, frankly, I think what went wrong, well, first of all, there's a long history one can trace as to what actually precipitated what went wrong. But I think what happened is that when Rosie fought the elections in 2000, the fact of the matter is that Rosie had to somewhat compromise his democratic socialist views and philosophies and so on by some of the persons he had to bring into his fold. And the reports are clear that since he did this, it was downhill thereafter. Many of the new Turks did not share his vision of a democratic society where the poorest shall have an even bite at the apple, where those underprivileged will all receive an opportunity to do well for themselves and their families, where Dominica's economy would prosper based on certain enlightened policies, where Dominica will take its rightful place in the world family of nations, where Dominica would embrace its African-American brotherhood, where we would reach out to the French islands, people like Dr. Marion, to forge this wonderful relationship which would prosper and bear fruit. Rosie looked at his position as being uniquely placed to be at the service of his island development, not just the island, quite frankly, because Rosie had strong Africanist roots, which we can't really go into fully at this point. So his whole philosophy of leadership was service. It wasn't self-aggrandizement, it was service. And the fact of the matter is, with Rosie's demise, what blossomed, unfortunate to the fore, was that counter-narrative, a narrative not based on service, a narrative not based on development, a narrative not based on the belief that whatever I can do for the least of my brothers, that I will endeavor to do. A narrative based on the fact that everyone shall eat, not just some. A narrative that you don't measure a person on the strength of the Gucci clothes he wears or the amount of money that he's secreted in mysterious bank accounts, but what he has done for his country. So that you had this perversion of Rosie's philosophy soon after he died, but even before his death. You remember the clear reports, substantiated, I should say, by some of the closest political persons to Rosie in October, actually in September, October of 2000, when they were upset that he was traveling so much. Now, let me ask you parenthetically, they made so much of a fuss about Rosie's traveling. Lofty, what fuss do they make now in terms of the traveling of this leader compared to what Rosie, at least you know that Rosie was traveling in terms of trying to get assistance for his island, in trying to get aid, trying to develop industry, in trying to reach out so that everyone can prosper, not just a few lackeys. And that is basically what happened. Rosie's philosophy in terms of political leadership, sadly and unfortunately, insofar as those who succeeded him, with the exception of Pierre Charles, died with him. And the biggest loser, Dominica. And therein lies the problem that we face now. And Lofty made a point, every year it seems that you hear less and less about Rosie. But why do you expect to hear anything about Rosie these days? From those who would set the tone, from those who can make it possible that future generations or young students can get knowledge of Rosie, what he stood for. What Rosie stood for is the very antithesis of what these folks now stand for. What they stand for is a total abdication and repudiation of what Rosie meant. In fact, when they made that song, everybody broke. They were talking about Rosie too, you know. Because he had nothing to show despite the fact that he was prime minister of his island. He negated and he turned his back on the privileged upbringing that he had. And can juxtapose that to what transpires today. Can you, in your wildest dreams, Lofty Duran or Alvin Thomas, think of Rosie living in a house where the taxpayers are burdened with a monthly payment of $65,000? When there are people who are earning $800 a month in the so-called NEP? And yes, we boast about the NEP and the wonderful job it's doing, but who are the major beneficiaries, Alvin Thomas, of the CBI program? Those who get $30 million commission. Those who are selling passports all over the place. Those who are mysteriously building and purchasing properties all over Dominica. Those who have accounts mysterious accounts, according to Zampoli, all over Europe, in Morocco, in Dubai. These are the major beneficiaries of the CBI program. Not the poor worker, not the worker who used to work for Public Works Department who was shafted, not the truck owners who cannot get a job, who are looking, playing with their engines every day while other persons are gaining. Chinese. And what was our Prime Minister's boast? A couple of years ago, over $220 million was sent by foreign workers from Dominica to their land or the land of their birth. So there will not be any discussion. There will be only token recognition of Rosie, probably a secondary school here, probably a Douglas Charles Airport there. But in terms of any substantive significance in terms of what Rosie meant to Dominica, you will have a permanent silence. And that itself is an indication as to just how we value history and what type of history we now embrace in Dominica. Thanks.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Brother Andre, for your inspiring opening remarks here, as it were. Dr. Moria, you, a special person, you shared a bond with Rosie, that friendship. Can you start by telling us some of the things that you and Rosie shared, the memories?
Yes, I want to say one, Rosie leaves an important legacy for us. The first legacy, I think that we have to think for ourselves and not let others tell us what is good for us.
Sorry, Doc.
I think it's very important.
Sorry, Rosie. Doc. Sorry, Doc. Can you just move your we're not seeing your face clear enough.
Yes.
If it's your computer, just move it down a bit.
Yeah. Oh, there's a problem of the computer. Yes. Yeah. I say Rosie have an important legacy for us. And when I discussed with Rosie, she said, always, we have to think for ourselves and never let other persons tell us what is good for us.
Okay.
Okay. It's very important. The second legacy, I think, Rosie thinks that the Caribbean is one. English speaking, French speaking, Spanish speaking, and we have to unite all that part of the Caribbean because the difference is a colonial difference. Is a thing of Rosie. The difference between Cuba, between Barbados, is a colonial difference. It's not a difference we decide. The third legacy, as Rosie thinks that social progress is the important aim we have to have. Social progress. And I was always fascinated by the intimate relationship with people. When, Rosie called me in an electoral campaign, and she said to me, Julian, you can't speak for the people because the people can hear what you want to say. And I speak 2 times in the Rosie electoral campaign. It's very, very important for us. And I saw at this occasion how Rosie was in the people. He was with ladies, young people, everybody. And when Rosie coming, people run to Rosie. Rosie arrived, Rosie arrived, Rosie arrived. It's very important. It's very important to notice that because for me, Rosie understand something. You can do anything without the people. We can do nothing without the people. The people is the axe, fundamental act. The last heritage of Rosie, I think, is democracy is important for us, but democracy is not the combination we may have between people with a politician. Democracy is a relation with the people. Democracy is a relation with people, and when you have a good relation with people, the people give you possibility to act for you. You know, I think Ozzy, when you look at the Caribbean now, we had three generations. The first generation of politician was politicians who were in independence. Eric Williams, Harold Barrow, Michael Manley, Alexander Butamonte is the first. But that have not a possibility to understand the world and to understand possibility to have a Caribbean united. And the second generation with Rosie understands that. I remember some meeting we had with Tim Hector, with George Odlum, with Maurice Bishop. And the idea was we have to build our Caribbean and we have to build it alone. And I think is the generation is the beginning of the Caribbean integration. And now we have a third generation with new politicians, but the third generation was prepared by Rosie Douglas, by men as Rosie Douglas. It's very important to understand that. If you have someone as Deacon Mitchell today, if you have someone as Terence Dew today, that's because Rosie was. Because Rosie was. I think it's very important to understand that. And you know, for me, Rosie is an important time, an important moment of the political development of the Caribbean. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Doc, you want to contribute anything more in terms of chiming in, Irvin?
What's it?
You're off. Irvin, Dr. Andre.
Yes.
Your mic is muted.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
yes.
Again, you see, many times, at least from a Dominican perspective, when we think of Rosie, we think about his rather limited tenure as prime minister. But Rosie's legacy obviously transcends that significantly. When you really want to do justice to Rosie's legacy, you have to assess his impact on the Canadian body politic. His contribution to the struggle for equality in Canada, not only in the 60s, but also in the 70s. The work he did with a number of different groups, the work he did with the indigenous communities in Toronto and in Ontario, I should say. You have to assess his contribution to the whole African liberation struggle, his role in the Methaba, his role in helping to fund a number of liberation movements, not just in Africa, but also in South America, also in North America, also in Canada. So you have to look at all these things. You have to look at also his contributions in terms of Northern Ireland. So it's a very wide topic, and we shouldn't limit his contribution in terms of what he did during those 8 months. But we have to focus on what transpired during his tenure in Dominica as prime minister, because it showed a vision of what Dominica could be. It shows us that unfortunately the Dominica Rosie envisioned was aborted by the political directorate. And the saddest part of it, Lofty Dura and Alvin Thomas, is that some of the very persons Rosie associated with and affiliated with in terms of establishing that leadership, that kind of transformation, it is sad to see many of them where they are now, politically speaking. A total betrayal of Rosie's dream of a Dominica that would take its proud place in the world community of nations in the 21st century. And that is the saddest and unkindest cut of all. The biggest loser has been Dominica. And I'll tell you, we can appreciate that now in 2024 much better than we could have appreciated it in the weeks or days or weeks or months after Rosie passed. That is the saddest and unkindest cut of all, where we could have been if Rosie had been given the gift of life to bring to bear what he had envisioned for Dominica. That is the unkindest cut of all, but life is not fair. But we have to try to make it. We have to try to bring that dream, to give it the kind of birth, or should I say rebirth, that it desperately needs. And hence I must applaud the work of people like Lofty Alvin, many persons on the ground who have selflessly and at great personal sacrifice, who have borne that banner of redemption, of transformation, of giving Dominicans hope that in the midst of all the adversity, in the midst of all the suffering, in the midst of all the victimization, there are persons who are prepared to stand up and say, this is not right. You can do whatever you want with me, but I will maintain my dignity and I will continue to fight for what is right. That is the hope that we have to embrace and clutch tenaciously in 2024, October. Thank you.
Dr. Irvin, some sentiments of some people out there when we speak about Rosie Douglas. One being, Rosie as Prime Minister did not take his role, that duty, as serious as he should have. Can you comment on that?
I think the criticism is that Rosie didn't form, Rosie wasn't an administration person, really. That was the main challenge that he faced. That many of the contacts he tried to cultivate, or he cultivated in the regional and international sphere, were personal connections that he cultivated. So he didn't develop, at least to the extent that, in my view, which would have been warranted, the kind of administrative network that you need to develop when you assume the reins of power. And that is probably one of the reasons why, following Rosie's demise, that whether it was Pierre Charles, well, certainly Pierre Charles, couldn't quite reach out and take advantage or cultivate the connections Rosie already had. But then again, it would be unfair to Pierre Charles because, look, Rosie in many respects was very extraordinary. Rosie had a charisma which was virtually unmatched. Rosie had the type of confidence to interact with anyone, irrespective of his or her position. And I will not regurgitate how he found himself in Canada, but it's a reflection of the type of person this guy was. His ability to reach across the aisle, irrespective of political affiliation. His affinity with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. His affinity with John Diefenbaker, who were on the opposite ends of the political spectrum. His affiliation with leaders in Africa, in Latin America, in the Caribbean, in North America, even among the indigenous movement, quite frankly, right here in Ontario, where there is a significant history of exploitation and generational trauma occasioned by oppression. So that Rosie had these extraordinary gifts, but like everybody else, he had his weak points, and that was certainly one of those weak points. But let me throw this out. Rosie held the reign of prime ministership for 8 months. 8 months. Is it fair to judge him and say that he lacked those qualities of leadership that otherwise someone else would have had? Did we give him, or did he have an opportunity to mature into the job? To learn the rudiments of being prime minister in its myriad forms? In my view, it would be very unfair. What we can look at is the vision he had and the prodigious work he undertook to bring that type of development to Dominica in a very selfless fashion. Very selfless. Look at where he lived. Look at the generosity of Rosie. Ask yourself how many godchildren he had. Ask people like Matt Peltier and probably Kalai who accompanied him on trips. Did he go on mysterious trips to Dubai? Would you have been in a position where you would have to speculate how many accounts Rosie had in foreign lands? How many houses he owned? How many people he victimized? Would you have occasion, if Rosie had lived through the grace of God, to have served just one term? So we have to look at this from this broader perspective. In a sense, life is not fair. And perhaps if he had taken the medical advice, and I know there's a controversy as to the genesis, as to his death, but I don't want to go into that this evening. But given what he tried to do in that short space of time, the traveling, and yes, you remember, one of the acolytes said that they would chain him to a chair. Lofty, what are they saying? Well, Lofty, what are they saying now? Let him bring 19 planes on the tarmac to steal an election?
I remember that Powell very, very well.
What are they saying?
Chaining him to a chair.
What are they saying now? Who are they talking about cheating? You tell me. The whole thing is a colossal joke. So what we've had is that in terms of governance, there has been a significant erosion of the morality of governance in Dominica, and we are the poorer for it. That is the problem.
Yes. Dr. Julian, any further thoughts from you before we bring it out?
You know, when I meet Rosie in May 20 in May, he said me, Julian, you know, we have to build a federation between Saint Lucia, Martinica, Dominica, and Guadeloupe. But they develop now. No, it's natural. It's natural to have this relation between Saint Lucia, Martinica, Dominica, and Guadeloupe. And he tell me in my ministry, in my government, I want to build this federation, and I have to go to Europe, to go to the French government. I want to go to the Guadeloupean and Martinican organization to discuss about that. And, you know, we had to organize the years after a seminary, a symposium between economical organizations, cultural organizations from Saint Lucia, Martinica, Dominica, and Guadeloupe to begin this building. I think it was an idea very important for Rosie, this possibility to have a large possibility to have a possibility to discuss with Europe, with USA, with Canada, everywhere. This idea is very important. I agree all that Arvin Andre say about the Rosie, I call that ideological position. Rosie was a visionary. He has a visionary because he doesn't have a government for today itself. Yes, you have to have solution for people today. But the real problem is what can I do? What can we do for future generation? And it was a problem of Rosie. It's very important future generation. And I think that it was that he wanted to to have a great federation. And I think after this federation, to have a Caribbean was from Trinidad until Bahamas. We have a very strong force to discuss with Europe. And Rosie want to definitively abolish all the rest of colonization. All that colonization led, he want to stop that. Thank you.
Yes, Lofty.
Yes, come in. I'm there just taking it in.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Miriam.
Both Dr. Miriam and Dr. Andre has unpacked a lot here this evening. And it's really, I mean, even discussing the topic is saddening, if you put it this way. It brings a certain amount of sadness. And let me just, before I make the comments that I make, let me just publicly on Civic Vibe thank Dr. Andre for the work he has done and the book that he published on Rosie. Very good book, Fearless Fighter for Freedom. And I think that is a piece of work that particularly our young people in the school system need to read. Because that's where the focus has to be, and that's where I'm going to come in with my comments. It is clear that after 24 years, that this current Labour Party is not going to do anything, after 2 decades and more, to recognize the work that Rosie Douglas has done or what he meant for us as Dominican. So from a historical perspective, after 24 years, nothing has happened. I hold my breath as to whether anything will happen. But Dr. Miriam made a few interesting comments, and so did Dr. Andre. And I agree with him that 8 months really is not a timeline to discuss Rosie's tenure as Prime Minister. 8 months in a term is certainly not a timeline. I mean, that's when you're just getting to know your permanent secretaries, know your ministries and stuff like that. And it's really unfair to really grade him as Prime Minister, I think, as Dr. Andre rightly put it. What of the work that was done from the 1970s, going all the way up until 2000, when he successfully brought the Labour Party to the election, to win an election. But Dr. Miriam made a point, and he referred to the third generation. The third generation. And I think in his comment earlier, again, he said, what can we do for future generation? And how can we take that vision? Because at the end of the day, those of us who are here discussing this now, you Lofty, Dr. Andre, Dr. Miriam, and there are many others who may not be there who are listening. We got to do something. And that's something I'm hoping, if the start is now, because next year, God's willing, if some of us are still here, will be 25 years. That's a quarter of a century since Rosie passed. What can we do, or what should we do? And tapping into that third generation that Dr. Miriam mentioned, and tapping into the vision that we know Rosie had, and taking on the fight for what is right, which Dr. Andre made reference to. I think we are obligated to do something. What that something is, I cannot tell you. I cannot right now paint it to you, but what I can say is that we must do something. We must start somewhere and do something. Because we cannot allow that legacy, that history, that individual to just go like that, and then we all sit back, and I'm not saying so in any way, mea culpa, mea culpa. So the challenge, I'm hoping, for all of those who are on the feed right now listening, wherever they are listening to us, in Toronto, I see folks in Scotland and all on the feed, throughout the Caribbean. I think we need to challenge ourselves to do something and to start somewhere. If it means next in commemoration of the 25th year, let's do something. And that's what I would say at this point, Lofty.
Yeah, thanks indeed. Thank you. We really need to do something in terms of his commemoration. Dr. Andre, you wrote this book, among many, many others, entitled The Mantra of Struggle, a biography of the Black revolutionary brother, Rosie Douglas. When I read this book, chapter 17 of that book, entitled Internal Dissension, it struck a chord. And without going through much detailed information, can you just give us a brief synopsis as to what you were talking about in there in terms of the internal dissension that Rosie and the Labour Party at his during that time went through? I saw you have a subhead in here entitled the Knives Are Drawn. Yes, the knives are drawn and the whaling dispute. These are subtopics. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think the history is relatively well known by now. When I did the book, I had occasion to speak to a number of persons who were somewhat close to Rosie. I had the benefit of getting access to all the newspapers at the time that Rosie became deceased. I spoke to members of his family, quite frankly. And I should say that although obviously the Douglas family is a microcosm of Dominica in the sense that there are fissures and fractures, so to speak. But people like Washwood Douglas, people like Sean and people like Cabral and Tiani and a few others, they've certainly tried to carry the mantle of Rosie. But before Rosie passed, the fact of the matter is that there was significant internal dissension in the party. Many insiders were unhappy with Rosie's incessant traveling. Many thought that he should be on the ground a little more. Again, as I said, today, 2024, looking back, we have a better sense as to the motivations of some of these folk. In fact, you would have read at some point, Lofty, that upon Rosie's arrival in Dominica around about the end of September, first day of October, when he called out to a number of his comrades, nobody picked up the phone. One was in church. One had a gland. One didn't hear the phone ring. And some of the insiders said, because they had a meeting within 48 hours of Rosie's arrival in Dominica, in which they discussed the possibility of removing Rosie as Dominica's prime minister. There are persons you can ask about. You may have read Lofty Durand in some of Dominica's newspapers. One of the insiders, you made reference to the whaling, in the whaling problem. Or Athi had this problem, or this dispute. Athi, I should say, as you know, in addition to some others like Bernard Wiltshire, like Ron Green, bore the mantle of progressive political thinking in Dominica since the 1970s, and they remain true to their beliefs. There are others, but these are the main ones. And I think Athi wrote in an article, I can't remember the date, but I quoted it in the book, that some of the younger Turks demanded money from Rosie in exchange for political office. Some of them threatened to go over to the UWP if they were not made ministers of government. So for them, this whole thing of political involvement was transactional, not ideological, not philosophical. They were not there to assist Dominica. They were there to assist the person in the mirror. And at that meeting, I think it was in St. Joseph, the knives were being sharpened. The knives of ambition, of political betrayal, were being sharpened on an anvil of greed and selfishness. And I don't know how much Shakespeare that you know, Lofty, but you remember that famous saying of Julius Caesar, "Et tu, Brute, you of all people." In Dominican, it means garçon, you of all people have betrayed me today. Well, and Rosie had occasion to reflect on that when he came back to Dominica. And he received news because immediately after his arrival, some of his own people literally ran or walked quickly, furtively, looking over their shoulders to see who's looking, to go to Rosie and to tell him what was transpiring behind his back. So, when we talk about no effort is being made serious to preserve the man's history, you think it's by accident? No. Because as I said, they had repudiated. When Edward Oliver LeBlanc died on about, what was it, in 2004? I was at the funeral in Vegas. There were acolytes who were saying openly, what happened to Edward Oliver LeBlanc will not happen to us. We will not be broke when we leave office. But you remember what they said about Patrick John? Didn't they say the same thing about Patrick John? They jeered at Patrick John. Goddess out new panye. Because the whole philosophy of being in office involving politics was not mercenary. Some of these first worshipped a god called Mammon, as opposed to the God of divine mercy. When we speak, Lofty, today about creating generational wealth, we think in terms of money. But when we should, how we should think in terms of generational wealth today, insofar as our young people is concerned, is education, knowledge of their past, knowledge of the intrinsic value of decency and integrity and humanity, knowledge about breaking down those barriers that unfortunately have kept Dominica in a state of virtual thraldom. You don't measure a man by the Gucci clothes he wears or the cost of his shoes. You measure a man by what he's done to uplift his own people. Not by how much money that is deposited in secret accounts, as Zampoli complained years ago in that lawsuit in New York, in Switzerland and elsewhere, but how much of that money is repatriated and pushed to work for the benefit of Dominicans on the ground. That is the morality that we should fight for. And that is why we have to continue to fight. Because if we wave the white flag of surrender, then all will be lost, as some have already done. So that is why we have to give kudos to those on the ground. And I say on the ground because they are the ones at the forefront of the vindictive nature of leadership in Dominica today, where persons are denied jobs, where persons' families are denied jobs, where persons are denied permanent positions despite the fact that they've earned it and then some. Police officers who are just trying to do their jobs are shot and cast aside. You remember what Inspector Weeks complained about years ago? Those who maintain or try to do their jobs as best as they can, they are not even rewarded. They are disregarded. They are treated as if they had the plague. And that is why we have to reverse that sorry state of affairs that exists in Dominica right now. Dominica cannot survive. Yes, some will get rich. Yes, those who can afford will send their children to be born in the hated United States of America, not in China, Gaza. Nobody want to go there and live there. because the Chinese people execute people found guilty of corruption. Lofty Dura. They don't give them a pat on the shoulder. They don't nolly process their cases. No. We have to dream and we have to work hard for a higher morality. We have to support. Some of us can only peel potatoes. Some of us are not gifted and talented like Alvin Thomas. We have to make whatever contribution we can make because no contribution is too small. And that is why you have to applaud the efforts to bring the authorities to account in terms of the net proceeds of sale of passports and have that money repatriated and have that money put to work for the benefit of the Dominican people on the ground, not those who are looking for an easy ticket and a couple $100 to spend voting tourism and run back to the states where they get benefits, mind you, where they get benefits from Guadeloupe and Martinique, even Antigua, for God's sakes, and leave Dominicans who are not even being given a paper bag. You remember was it the World Health Organization years ago gave the Dominican authorities $30 million to provide relief, COVID relief. Lofty, I heard you got a few $100 of that. Is it true?
Well, maybe the caller will answer that. We have a call on the line. Caller, yes, good evening to you.
You didn't tell me, Ravina.
To you, Lofty, and to your esteemed guests,
Yes,
and to your listeners. Lofty, I have two questions I want to ask, and I hope you can give me answers. For many years, it appears that the Labour Party in power has not recognized the date of the death of Rosie. Has that happened again this year?
Well, the Labour Party as the party, no.
Right. For many years, they appear to not have celebrated the date of his birthday either. Has that happened again this year?
Not at all. Not that I know of.
Right. So two things. First of all, it makes me wonder why it is that you have persons such as the great Paul Alexander, who lives in St. Thomas, and others like him, who are staunch Labour Party supporters, who seem totally and absolutely unable to recognize the absolute betrayal of the leadership of the Labour Party in relation to Rosie and his values and the recognition of him, right? And because of the name, the Labour Party, the name, they seem to remain staunchly in support of that group who is in leadership, despite the fact that they themselves, Paul Alexander and others, spend a lot of time writing about Rosie and how good he was and how wonderful he was. So I just cannot understand why it is that they cannot make the distinction. But we notice that the leadership of the Labour Party for years now has not had delegates conference. And apparently because of the recent events, for whatever strange reason, they've suddenly decided this year that they are going to have a delegates conference. We shall see why as the whole thing unfolds. I hope now that we are raising the fact that the leadership has not recognized Rosie in the years since his passing, that now that we are bringing this to the fore yet again, that they're not suddenly going to start celebrating Rosie, celebrating his birthday, and maybe next year celebrating his contribution on the day of his, or the anniversary of his passing. It's time for the Labour Party supporters to recognize that those who are in leadership of their party, all of them, are not green labor rights are not this, that, and the other. What they are is something called opportunists. That's all they are. They
All
are
right.
members of a grouping called opportunists. Time for them to recognize that. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, caller. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed, and point well made indeed. Thank you very much. Dr. Mera, do you have anything to share with us in terms of your bond, your friendship with Rosie before we bring it to a wrap in just a bit?
Yes. I want to see this year we had a message. I call it Rosie Forever. I think is very important to think that possibility we have to maintain to keep this idea. You know, in June, I was in the CSA conference, Caribbean Studies Association conference. It was in St. Lucia. And in a panel about education, many university people asked the question, how we can to give young people possibility to know their past, to know their history, what possibility? And I answer, the history is there. And I give an example. I say, I have a book and I present this book. I say, you have a book about Rosie Douglas. And when in Guadeloupe, when I ask young people, sa yo connaît si Rosie Douglas? Yo pas connaît. C'est mon génération, moi. My generation, no Rosie Douglas. And we have to do the job to have the connaissance. You know, we have in each country some people who bring new idea, new practice. And now time is arrived to give them place in your history and the building of a new Caribbean. It's my thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We are slowly but surely running out of time. Alvin, any further comments? And then we go around the table to sort of bring it to a wrap.
No, I think, you know, we to do justice to Rosie's vision and the work of Rosie over the years. I mean, we can never deal with that in a 1 hour program. We're just scratching the surface. Basically, that's what we're doing, because I mean, this man's contribution, and if we're to really, I mean, dig deep into it, we will all agree, those of us who are honest with history, will all agree that it is much more than that. And that is why I made the earlier comments that it is so pathetic that after that period of time, that if you were today ask a young student at SMA or grammar school, any one of them, to tell you something, give me one line or paragraph, write something about Rosie Douglas, without they having to do any research. They might tell you, well, who is this guy, Rosie Douglas? That name sounds foreign to them. So I think as a people, we have to, and we can do more than that. I know, and I'm reading from the feed too, that there's a frustration. A lot of people say, oh, yeah, we need to get rid of this administration. And I'm one that supported entirely. I think that administration have outlived their time. But there's a how to everything. There's a strategy to everything. And while I understand the frustration, there's a strategy. And somebody called me old school. You know, I'm not as old as Irving, but I'm old enough to remember the struggles of the 70s. I'm old enough to remember that what we did as youngsters in the 70s, as vocals as we were, it took a while before it manifested itself over the years. So it is my hope that, as I said, that on the 25th anniversary next year, that those of us who are still very passionate, and as you say, Dr. Julia immediately jumped to the request to come on the program, we'll continue to do what we have to do and to continue that fight. And that's why I'm in that fight as well. You know, it's not a fight I'm going to give up anytime soon. So anybody who think I'm going to give it up, they have something else thinking. You know, it's when the good Lord ready for me and he takes me away from this earth. But that's a fight that will I continue to have. And I'm hoping that that we can have something more meaningful for Ruzi. And I want to thank Irvin for the work that he has done over the years, and also Dr. Julia and the many other folks who are listening, who are there, the Sean Douglas and the several other persons, for what they have done in keeping the spirit, as we say, the spirit of Ruzi alive. The flesh may have been dead, but the spirit is still alive. I will tell you that much.
Indeed. Cabral Douglas writes here, just before I go to Irvin and Dr. Morion. Cabral Douglas writes, Ruzi Douglas was a political pioneer, yes, a trailblazer who punched above his weight in the realms of international politics. His foreign policy led to the Cuban Scholarship Program, the opening of relations with China, and special relations with the French and broader Caribbean. And had he not been undermined by those who owe their political existence to him within the current Labour Party leadership, Dominica and Dominicans would have benefited significantly. Cabral Douglas's writings. Dr. Muria,
Yeah.
Again, I want to thank you for coming on. Your final comments, sir, before you leave.
I thank you. I thank you because it was a great pleasure for me to participate on this emission about Rosie. It's very important, I think, to have this possibility to speak about man as Rosie, man he have a vision on our Caribbean, and I thank you for your invitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Andrew, your final comments before you leave, brother?
Let me again commend both yourself and Alvin and your producers for having this special gathering dedicated to Rosie. Let me thank your listeners on social media for being here. It is not a waste of time. On the contrary, it is a valuable investment in Dominica's future that you seek to empower people with knowledge, not with money, not with ill-gotten gains, but with money. And, you know, I've been looking at or following the United States elections very closely. And one of the things Kamala has done, she's motivated a number of disparate groups, whether it's white men for Kamala, whether it's South Asians for Kamala, whether it's African-American women for Kamala. And she's hosted, or these groups have held huge, you know, I'm not very technologically inclined because my typewriter is on my side waiting for me to attend to it. But having these big meetings, these virtual meetings, in terms of fundraising. But think of it, if the right-minded persons can organize this massive world conference virtually with a focus on Rosie, with a focus on giving life to his vision of Dominica. So not only will that include, for example, not 1 hour, but 2 hours or 3 hours or even 4, with presentations on behalf of the brother and fundraising dedicated to assisting those in need, whether it's students, whether it's those who face persecution, whether it's repatriation of Dominica's money, but having a massive, using the technology of today, 2024, as opposed to 2000, to pay homage to the legacy of this extraordinary man. Hopefully we can have that type of vision, and that vision could be made into reality. That is the dream that I have. Thank you very much, and thank you, your listeners.
Absolutely. Well said, Dr. Andrew. Well said. That's exactly the way I feel myself. Well said.
I love honesty and integrity. A leader can get caught up in vanity.
All right, all of you on the live feed, thank you very much for your eyes and ears each and every time. Just heard a splendid discussion with Dr. Irvin Andre and Dr. Julian Moria from Guadeloupe. Man who wrote about Rosie, Dr. Irvin Andre, and Dr. Moria, man who shared times with the brother.
If I ever serve,
as we continue to let his memory live very, very high.
My life above suspicion.
Brother Bob saying, if I was a prime minister. Take a listen, and then we're going to bring it to a wrap in just a bit.
I'm making him regret the day he was born. I'm taking them to the CCJ, and they cannot pay. I'm taking their house. I'm taking their vehicle, and depending on who, I'm taking their woman too. Yes, I.
So Dominicans, that's it for tonight's edition.
King Bob!
All of you on the live feed, thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you.
Those of you north, south, east, and west. Douglas's family, pleasant good evening to you all.
I have built them luxury and for mansions when all I really need is one consideration for the poor and needy. Opposition wouldn't be my enemy. They wouldn't have no choice but to work with me with transparency and accountability. If leadership is everything, then my leadership is bound to shine. And all the good and bad in the country would reflect on me as if everything in the land was mine. If I was Prime Minister.
Brother John Blanchard, good evening to you, my bro.
Traffic lights on the Olipla Highway.
And all of you right there still, good evening to you guys.
In that
whatever is left of your Sunday night, please, please, yes.
have nothing to say.
Do enjoy, huh?
And I would say,
so the first segment we want to say here at Civic Vibes, thanks to Brother Ian Magic Hughes of Antigua and Barbuda for giving us his perspective as it relates to the UPP and their numerous resignations of late.
Early, all mamas are bowing before they drink their coffee, coming out and vote for me. Yes, I.
The second segment, indeed, a powerful second segment as well. We heard from Dr. Irvin Andre, no stranger to us in Dominica.
King Bob, say.
Dr. Julian Moria resides in Guadeloupe. Very good friend of Rosie he was.
No one a matter of sovereignty. I would stay away from me, I'm not me, and cherish Ross University. I don't want crooks and traitors around me, like Isaac Onichalo and Ostry. But the best brains in the country. I would tell Shishing Dominica for Dominicans. He can kiss where the sun doesn't shine. And all the big jobs and contracts is locals first. Then for the citizens from everywhere, all over the universe. Yeah, man. If I was.
So on behalf of Alvin Thomas and the Civic Vibes team, thank you very much, guys. See you guys next week, same time, same place.
If I was to serve,
we're gonna take the last verse from King Bob and bring it to a wrap.
I would call them out whenever they're doing wrong. Man like Thompson, Sparks, Bosso, and Linton. All who want to join my party can come. But they must have the understanding. It is a country we're building, so join in. Let us work together. But they have to remember who really running things. Yes, I and I. Hey! Shabba, shabba, shabba. Hey, hey.